every year in monsoon season, a flood comes and washes out every piece of infrastructure that is found on a flood-prone area. Last year, in 2024, almost $1.7 billion worth of direct monetary assets were destroyed in floods struck Sylhet in Moimansingh. In order to tackle this problem of our country, we would like to propose a concept of engineering the weather and how rain can change everything. What is rain? Before we ask the question, what is rain, we have to ask, what is cloud? Cloud is just part of the water cycle. When waters evaporate from a water body and accumulates in the atmosphere in form of droplets, it coagulates and turns into cloud. And after condensation, and when it rapidly cools, it turns into rainfall. And when rainfall happens, it participates in a water fixation process in nature. From the Bay of Bengal, when this evaporation of water happens and cloud turns into forcible rain, it travels the entire proximity of Bangladesh and travels up north. When the clouds are formed in Bay of Bengal, because it is a lighter form of water and upon contact with heat, it travels up to the atmosphere and introduced to the high currents of wind. It travels from Bay of Bengal to north of Bangladesh. And the entire proximity of Bangladesh is almost flat. But if we look at the northeastern region of Bangladesh, up in the border of Bangladesh and India, there's a region, a mountainous region. Regions like Meghalaya, Sikkim, and Darjeeling, these introduce a sudden rise in elevation. In the flatlands of Bangladesh, clouds can very easily travel from here to there, but when it introduced to the mountain ranges of Meghalaya, a sudden elevation of almost 1,300 meters is introduced, and the clouds that travel the entirety of Bangladesh, it reaches to that high elevation and rapidly cools down, turns into a higher percentage of precipitation of rain. What happens is, the regions of Bangladesh, the southward regions of Bangladesh, has a very intricate design of geography. It mainly is turned by the Padma River basin. The basin, because of its intense water flow every year at monsoon, it made such canals that could easily drain the water from the place where it precipitated and then dump it all in the Bay of Bengal. But it cannot do at the regions of Sylhet, Moimansingh, and Rangpur. As a result, when rainfall happens, these regions is instantly prone to flash floods and big waves of floods that are introduced by heightened flow of water in those rivers that are incapacitated to drain these into a place where it can be managed. So what happens is, the region where it does not have any natural drainage system, this place turns into a flood-prone area. For example, in 2022, 94% of Sunamganj was submerged into water because of a sudden flash flood that happened close to Sylhet. And 84% of Sylhet got submerged into water because of the same incident. In Bangladesh, in 2022, almost 24% of its rice capacity was directly struck after a flood hit to the regions of northeast. So how can we solve this problem? Every year, a flood comes and destroys the homes of people who live there. And everyone has to start from the beginning. Crops get destroyed, millions of people get diverted from their home, and they have to start life all over from the beginning. Their crops are destroyed, their homes are not livable without proper reconstruction. How can we change that? A very intricate way to solve this problem is actually introduced by countries from the 1950s. The countries like Thailand, countries like Indonesia, these countries, when they are expected to hit with severe rainfall and floods, what they do is they see clouds. They see clouds and then they make sure that precipitation of water happens before it reaches the land. Now, we plan on solving this problem with doing the same. Now, before I get into more of how can we tackle this problem, I want to tell you about what is cloud seeding. When water becomes cloud, it goes through a process of condensation. And condensation can happen in two ways. One is a natural way. When the water droplets that are floating in a cloud gets extremely cold and coagulates together, resulting on rainfall, is the natural way of rain. We can also do the same by aggregating an introduction of condensation nuclei. What happens is, when we have a body of condensed water, if we introduce it with condensation nuclei, it could be anything. It could be something that introduces a surface tension to the cloud. It could be used with table salt. It could be used with potassium iodide. It could also be, in 1953 in Soviet Union, they used to use cement as surfactant nuclei in order to influence rainfall. What we can do before the clouds that originate from the Bay of Bengal, before it goes to the northeast region to create heavy rainfall and then trigger floods, we can seed clouds to make sure that these rain is precipitated before it reaches to in a flood-prone area. And you might ask, is that even possible? Like, we can design where we want rainfall and we don't. Well, it is possible, and it is done all over the world. In China, the farmers that cultivate rice, they use artillery and howitzers to introduce surfactant nuclei to the clouds and trigger rainfall. Dubai uses a very famous method of cloud seeding by a plane and make sure that their country gets enough rainwater that they do not have to rely on desalination plants for their water needs. America has been doing it since 1944. They have also done it in 1968 in the Vietnam War in order to make sure the forces of Viet Cong could not mobilize in muddy terrain because the rain was so much, the paved roads got submerged into water. But we are willing to get an approach of more peaceful purposes. We want to use it for agriculture. We want to use it for reduction of floods. We can also use it to reduce cycling, even though that's a conceptual hypothesis. We haven't done much work with it, but the method of cloud seeding is, first of all, very keen to financial incentives. If we look at previous year's data, last year we lost almost $1.7 billion worth of economic output because of floods. We could have just spent $23 million. I actually done the math. We could have just spent $23 million as per the standard the Indonesians used to seed their clouds in the island of Sumatra. And we could have saved $1.7 billion. Last year it was, in 2024, it was $600 million, and the number varies from 600 to $5 billion. These money could have been saved just by doing some environmental engineering. And if we only look at the economic perspective, then it would be an unfair treatment, because we also have to realize that last year 7.2 million people had to leave their home because their home was submerged into water. We could have saved their home. We could have saved the lives of the hundreds and thousands of cattle that lost their life, and those people who might drown in the floodwaters. I thank everyone. Because we don't have much time, I have not explored the entire process of cloud seeding and not the possibilities of how could we implement, like the coordination of human meteorological department and also bureaucracy. Thank you. And now I am standing here to answer some questions. Maybe I can answer. Does anyone have any questions? আমি রেফারেন্স অনুযায়ী যদি দিই, কারণ আমাদের সময় আমাকে রেফারেন্স আছে।